Hi there and welcome to Tours with Tilly. Today we're venturing to the windswept cliffs of Dorset to uncover the secrets of St Aldhelm's Chapel. A hidden gem from the 12th century perched on St Aldhelm's Head. This ancient chapel has stood strong against centuries of storms and stories, and today we're peeling back the layers of its past. We'll step inside this mysterious stone building where echoes of a bygone era still linger. And just a short walk away, I'll be visiting the local Coast Watch station, a volunteer-run outpost keeping a vigilant eye on the sea, watching for ships in danger, ever since local Coast Guard stations were shut down in the 90s. Now, to get here, it's a bit of a trek, about 1.5 miles from the nearest car park. You could drive, but unless you've got a beast of a vehicle, you're in for a bumpy ride. Trust me though, it's worth the walk. The coastline views are usually breathtaking, well, unless you visit on a day like I did, when all I could see was a blanket of grey. But don't worry, I've got some footage to show you of what it's like when the weather actually behaves. What's unique about St Aldhelm's Chapel is its square shape, something you don't usually see in a chapel. Each corner lines up with the points of a compass, and over the centuries it's had a few different uses. It's still a bit of a mystery whether it was actually originally built as a chapel or for something else. Some say it may have had a defensive role, like Corfe Castle nearby, protecting the coast from sea threats. Later, in the medieval period, it became a place where priests prayed for sailors' safety, and it may have acted as a beacon to guide ships past the dangerous cliffs. By the 13th century, during King Henry III's reign, we know it was being used for religious purposes, as payments were made to a chaplain. By 1625, it shifted again, this time becoming a landmark for mariners. At this point, it had fallen into disrepair, where people would come and leave engravings on the central column. My favourite, a beautifully written Augusta. Probably from a long time ago, because honestly, how many people named Augusta do you meet these days, and whose handwriting is that neat anymore? In the 1800s, the chapel was restored and reopened for church services, attended by Coast Guards and their families living nearby. In fact, there are a row of Coast Guard cottages right opposite the chapel. A very special place to live. I imagine in the winter it can be quite eerie, but in the summer, when it's blue skies, absolutely beautiful. Right, here I am in front of the camera now, and I'm hiding from the wind, so apologies if the wind does sound very annoying for you. I am now in the doorway of the white building that you would have seen sort of to the right of the chapel. We might not know why the chapel was originally built, but we do know this was purpose-built to be a watch station, and it's manned entirely by volunteers from the National Coast Watch Institution, who keep an eye and an ear on the coastline here at St Aldhelm's so they can help any boats that might find themselves in trouble. And inside we have Deputy Station Manager Alan Loader, who has very kindly come in to chat to us today a bit more about what they do here. Hi Alan!
Hello, Tilly.
Thank you so much for coming in on this
That's
very
okay.
windy day, and I know you walked from the car park as well, so thank you for that. And we can't show too much of what goes on in the background here, so we'll take a seat in the corner. Thanks.
Okay.
Right, well I'm very intrigued to learn a little bit more about what you do here at the station, so I'm going to start off by asking about you. How did you find yourself here?
Okay, so when I was younger I used to do an awful lot of sailing,
Yeah.
so I was always interested in the sea. And then when I moved to the Dorset area a few years back, I was walking up and down the coast path, I think like some of my fellow watchkeepers, and I was wondering what goes on in this lookout station. And I was looking for something to do as a volunteer, and something that was a sort of a technical role and a supporting role for the search and rescue. So I banged on the door and asked if they needed any volunteers, and hey presto, they did.
Yeah.
So yes, I basically joined the team through the training program and became qualified as a watchkeeper.
And how would you describe what you do and why it's important?
So the main role, so if we go back, so basically the history of the NCI came about because this used to be a Coast Guard lookout station, but they were closed down in the early 90s.
Okay.
And sadly the organisation was actually born out of a tragedy when a fishing boat sank off the Lizard down in Cornwall, and the 2 guys on board were lost. And the locals realised that if there'd been perhaps someone in the old lookout station, then they'd seen the incident.
Yeah.
So the local people around that area reinstated it as a volunteer, as a group of volunteers.
So they created the National Coast Watch
It was
institution.
born out of that first lookout.
And why did the Coast Guards?
Oh, that was a government initiative to change the structure of the Coast Guard service.
Okay.
So they moved from individual lookout stations and consolidated the service into some regional centres around the UK. And so, yes, a station like this no longer had full-time Coast Guard employees within it. And then, yeah, so from those early days in 1994, it's our 30th anniversary this year, we now have 60 stations manned by volunteers along the England and Wales coastline. We're a key component of the search and rescue operation, because without us, the Coast Guards in their various regional centres haven't got actual eyes and people who are, yes, like I say, watching over people, trying to spot and predict potentially someone getting into trouble before
it's too late.
Yes.
Yeah, or before they're not necessarily too late, but before it becomes quite perilous, I guess.
Yeah, and also, as well as reacting to actual incidents and situations where people are in trouble.
Is there a story that sort of springs to mind about a time where you have helped a boat in trouble?
Yes, we can't name names or anything, but yes, me personally, I had some people to the rest of us here. One of the things that does occur is that boats come round and surf into Chapman's Pool.
Okay.
So they come round in their little boats and they jump off with their surfboards and they surf the breaks that are just here to have a quieter period than surfing off Kimmeridge. Yeah. And I did see one small inflatable with an outboard clearly having engine difficulties. So they weren't perhaps in any immediate danger, but I called the Coast Guard to advise them that I could see, because I could see them trying to swim and push the boat in the direction back towards Kimmeridge, and I could tell they wouldn't be able to make it. So a scenario like that isn't immediately life-threatening, but what it means is that other boats can be called and say, could you go over and just check them out and if necessary give them a tow.
You're like a guardian angel, keeping watch on this person out at sea, didn't even know you were there observing them.
And that is quite common, and we get yachtsmen come in to see what we're doing here, and they'll say we've sailed by, and we actually, yes, we are watching, and we will watch boats going through the race carefully. So if we're at all concerned, we're, unbeknownst to them, we're actually keeping a very close eye on them just in case. We're watching for the possibility of anybody obviously falling off in the rough water, or the boat generally just getting into trouble.
Yeah. And is anyone able to become a watchkeeper, or do you think only people with maritime experience or good knowledge of the sea and tides?
No, not at all. You don't need to have a military or a maritime background. You just need an aptitude really for learning. So yes, some of us are ex-military, some of us have a sailing background, so we have a natural interest in this type of volunteer work. But no, absolutely anybody, because we'll train you. So you can turn up with no maritime knowledge at all, and you'll go through a sort of 6, 9, 12 month, depending on how fast you can actually do it and commit to it, training program that will teach you what you need to know to be able to be a watchkeeper.
Because you're volunteers, I imagine that the NCI is run entirely on donations, or do you get any sort of government funding?
Absolutely no government funding towards the operation. So we rely on donations, bequests by people, some people are very generous. And then our big thing has become open days. So over the public holidays, we open up and we offer teas and coffees and cakes made by our volunteers and their other halves, to the walkers who are going by.
Yeah.
And we built a reputation that we now get return business, basically people coming by, and that really helps us raise money. And other stations do similar things. They have book sales, they do the cake thing. So you have to make a bit of effort to help fundraise and support your own station. Yes.